long-term peace and stability in the South China Sea. This translates to China's willingness to work with ASEAN nations on a code of conduct for the BC waterway. Negotiations on the code for the waters had been stalled for years. Now it is scheduled to be finalized in 2021. Once finalized, the agreement is expected to lay out conduct guidelines for the sea, along with mechanisms for resolving conflicts and contested claims. Meanwhile, the United States has condemned what it calls Chinese intimidation in the South China Sea. The U.S. alleged that China bullied smaller Southeast Asian nations by militarizing the resource-rich waters and by seeking to control the global trade route. Speaking at the ASEAN-U.S. Summit, U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien said,
Beijing has used intimidation to try to stop ASEAN nations from exploiting their offshore resources, blocking access to $2.5 trillion in oil and gas reserves alone. These tactics go against the rules of respect, fairness, and international law. The region has no interest in a new imperial era where a big country can rule others on the theory that might makes right. America is helping our ASEAN friends uphold their sovereignty.
For his part, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte calls on ASEAN countries not to choose sides between China and the United States. The Philippine president said ASEAN must lead the way in building trust and confidence among all stakeholders and to persuade parties to exercise self-restraint and avoid actions that may further complicate the situation. Duterte then assured the leaders of the ASEAN that he will push for the conclusion of the negotiations on a code of conduct in the South China Sea as soon as possible. Another burning issue that was tackled during the summit was the Rohingya crisis. The ASEAN leaders encouraged the continued and effective dialogue between Myanmar and Bangladesh to facilitate the repatriation process of displaced persons from Rakhine State. They also reiterated the need to find a comprehensive and durable solution to address the root causes of the conflict and to create a conducive environment so that the affected communities can rebuild their lives. The ASEAN also reaffirmed its continued support for Myanmar's efforts to bring peace, stability, the rule of law, to promote harmony and reconciliation among the various communities, as well as to ensure sustainable and equitable development in Rakhine State. On the economic side, it was noted during the summit that ASEAN as a region continued to register a positive performance in output, trade, and investment. The region's economy grew by 5.2% in 2018, reaching a combined GDP of up to $3 trillion to retain its position as the fifth largest economy in the world. It was said, however, that the world's largest trade deal, the 16-country Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, known as the RCEP, was not signed during the summit. A statement released at the end of the RCEP summit on November 4 noted that 15 countries have concluded text-based negotiations for all 20 chapters and essentially all their market access issues, and tasked legal scrubbing by them to commence for signing in 2020. It was India who opted not to join the RCEP. India has unresolved issues on the deal, which are reportedly grounded on concerns that an influx of cheap Chinese goods would decimate its infant industries. The proposed RCEP involves ASEAN's 10 member states, plus China, India, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand, which altogether contribute 1/3 of the world's gross domestic product. Meanwhile, during the East Asia Summit, Singapore Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong called on ASEAN nations and their partners to help write a new rulebook on trade. He said this is to keep up with the rapidly evolving digital economy. The Prime Minister noted that international trade has been a key driver of global growth and prosperity since the end of World War II. But according to him, the multilateral system must be updated to reflect current realities to continue to function properly and in a politically sustainable way. Another notable event in the summit this year was the ASEAN-U.S. Summit. For the second straight year, U.S. President Donald Trump did not attend the summit itself and instead sent his National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien to lead the U.S. delegation. In response, the Southeast Asian leaders also snubbed the ASEAN-U.S. Summit. Only 3 prime ministers attended it, including Thailand's Prayut Chan-o-cha, Vietnam's Nguyen Xuan Phuc, and Laos' Thongloun Sisoulith. On the lighter side, the Southeast Asian countries signed a memorandum of understanding with football's global governing body, FIFA. After the signing of the MOU, a FIFA representative went from right to left, distributing jerseys to the 10 ASEAN leaders who stood in the middle of the stage. President Rodrigo Duterte was given a jersey with number 10, which, according to a report from Bangkok-based The Nation, means team captain. For Eagle News, Nea Mangawang, I am Juan with 25.
More ASEAN Summit details when ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition returns.
When visiting the Philippines, Manila or Quezon City is a popular destination. But oftentimes the hustle and bustle of the city can be more stressful on your vacation. So when you feel the need to reconnect to nature or relax again, there's a beautiful oasis just outside of the city called the Garden at Ciudad de Victoria. Some of the species that you can see here include hydrangea, snapdragon, and stargazers. They're truly beautiful. The gardens at Ciudad de Victoria are so peaceful, tranquil, and beautiful that it's become a haven for young couples and a very popular venue for engagement photos. The next time you want an escape from the big city, the garden at Ciudad de Victoria is a wonderful place to visit.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition. As mentioned in the report before we went on break, the South China Sea issue was still one of the concerns in the recently concluded ASEAN Summit in Bangkok. The Philippines won its petition against China's extensive claims to most parts of the South China Sea before the Hague-based Permanent Court of Arbitration in July 2016. But President Rodrigo Duterte refused to bring up the arbitral ruling during the ASEAN Summit. Instead, the President maintained the stance that the Philippines would avoid being a pawn of any countries, including the United States, which takes a stand against Beijing's sweeping claims to the disputed sea. Here is Presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo reiterating the President's stance.
I do not know exactly what the U.S. want in this part of the region. While it's trying to contain the movement of China with respect to navigation, I cannot even understand, like what the President said, when they were starting to build structures there, they did not stop China. And it's only now that they're doing it, but it's too late. Countries are appreciative that China is open to a code of conduct. You must remember that China believes that the entire seas around it are theirs. Hence, they want to control it. The fact alone that it's opening itself to have a code of conduct where you will be observing certain rules that will be useful in preventing conflicts is good enough. I think every country would want to have a peaceful and stabilized region for obvious reason. It's for everybody's interest.
Meanwhile, leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, want to finish a binding Code of Conduct, or COC, in the South China Sea within 3 years or earlier. This is what the 10-country group said in its ASEAN Common Statement for the 22nd ASEAN-China Summit held on Sunday, November 3, that was read by President Rodrigo Duterte. Chief Presidential Legal Counsel and Presidential Spokesperson Salvador Panelo in a statement said the Philippines was tasked as a country coordinator for the ASEAN-China dialogue relations. He said the 10-member regional bloc, based on its common statement, greeted China on its 70th anniversary and said ASEAN and China should improve further discussions on political security through regular high-level meetings and coordination. President Rodrigo Roa Duterte likewise reaffirmed ASEAN's commitment to maintain and promote peace, security, stability, and safety in the South China Sea. In particular, the chief executive reaffirmed the regional bloc's shared aspiration to conclude an effective and substantive code of conduct within a 3-year timeline, or better yet, earlier. The President also reiterated his suggestion that ASEAN members must ensure self-restraint despite the territorial disputes on the South China Sea for the eventual materialization of an effective and substantive code of conduct. He called against land reclamation, militarization of features, and paramilitary actions. He, however, pointed out that more than self-restraint, ASEAN leaders should be united in pushing for the conclusion of the COC. ASEAN and other world leaders also held several related summits in Bangkok, one of which is the ASEAN-US Summit. US President Donald Trump's absence, however, is a disappointment to some in the region and may undermine the U.S. assertion that it puts a high priority on trade and other ties with the region. With this, U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien invited Southeast Asian leaders to a summit in America next year after.
I would also like to take this opportunity to offer an invitation to the leaders of ASEAN to join me in the United States for a special summit meeting at a time of mutual convenience in the first quarter of 2020. This will provide an excellent opportunity for us to broaden and deepen our cooperation on matters of great importance to the nearly 1 billion people the United States and the ASEAN nations have the privilege to represent.
President Rodrigo Duterte, just like most of his counterparts in ASEAN, skipped the ASEAN-US Summit Monday. Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez III told journalists that he was informed by Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr., who represented the President to the meeting, that the summit will be among ministers. Similarly, U.S. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien represented U.S. President Donald Trump. ASEAN leaders who attended the summit are Thailand Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, Laos Prime Minister Thongloun Sisulit, and Vietnam Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc. Dominguez, in a briefing, said he does not consider Trump's absence in the summit as something that will affect views on U.S. stance on ASEAN.
He's missed. I don't think it affects the view of the ASEAN about the reliability of the U.S. For reliability, we had better look into their actions rather than into their presence. I suppose he has other issues that he has to address, and most of them are domestic at the moment. I think he has a slight problem with the legislature there, so let's allow him to make his choice.
For the first time, the Rohingya crisis has been tackled in the ASEAN Summit. On the sidelines of the ASEAN Summit in Bangkok, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres expressed concern over the situation in Myanmar and the plight of massive numbers of refugees. While welcoming ASEAN's recent engagement with Yangon, he flagged that it was ultimately Myanmar's responsibility to address the root causes of the crisis.
It is absolutely essential for the government of Myanmar to assume as a clear priority the reconciliation, the internal reconciliation paving the way to address the root causes of displacement and allowing for the return, voluntary and in safety and dignity, of the refugees to Myanmar. Some steps have been done, but they are too small. We need to do much more.
Environmental issues were also discussed. During the last week's summit, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said 4 of the 10 countries most affected by climate change are members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, urging the ASEAN Summit in Bangkok to, quote, confront the world's climate emergency.
In 2050, the research has forecasted that 300 million people will be flooded by seawater in the world. And dramatically, the most vulnerable areas are exactly in Southeast Asia, in Japan, China, Bangladesh, and India. Climate change is running faster than what we are, and this is the biggest threat to the planet at the present moment, the defining issue of our time. Countries that are one of the most vulnerable areas to climate change need to give an example, need to be in the front line of carbon pricing, of stopping subsidies to fossil fuels, and of stopping the construction of new coal-powered and electricity plants in order to be able to defeat climate change and to preserve the beautiful cities like Bangkok and others that we want as a legacy to humankind forever.
ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition will be right back. Stay tuned.
Now in its 51st year, Eagle Broadcasting Corporation has held various child care and development programs. With the support of participating organizations and sponsors, EBC conducted the following activities. Sports clinic program wherein basketball coaches and players taught students the importance of discipline.
So if I say 3 claps, 2 claps, 1, 2, 3, 0.
Confidence,
Fire! Stance!
and teamwork. Free haircut, free massage, feeding programs, school supplies distribution, and storytelling spearheaded by Net 25 Kids.
Sa kanya, nagkasakit po. Nagkasakit.
EBC Cares, enabling a better community.
Landmarks, Linggo, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition. The leaders of the 10-country Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, are one in pushing for stronger relations with India, being an important pillar that supports the multilateral system and regionalism.
In maintaining regional peace, security, and promoting prosperity.
This was stressed by Thailand Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha in his speech during the opening ceremony of the ASEAN-India Summit on Sunday, November 3. He said both the multilateral system and regionalism bids promote stability and prosperity in the region and the world based on mutual benefit and mutual respect. ASEAN and India are optimistic to see further improvement in their strategic partnership for the benefit of both regions, he said.
Whether this is done through the implementation of the plan of action to implement the ASEAN-India Partnership for Peace, Progress and Shared Prosperity, or the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific, for which we appreciate India's support.
The ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific aims to, among others, guide cooperation in the region, help promote peace, stability, and prosperity while addressing challenges by using rules-based regional structure and enhance ASEAN communities' building process. Relatively, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi expressed willingness to increase partnership with ASEAN by way of better surface, maritime, and air connectivity through digital links. He said the $1 billion line of credit from India will be useful, referring to the fund that India extended to ASEAN during the 13th ASEAN-India Summit in November 2015.
Our aim is to have a great increase in the mobility of people for studies, research, trade, and tourism. In order to achieve these goals, India is ready to increase its partnership with ASEAN in areas of mutual interest.
Modi said India is also ready to tie up with ASEAN on agriculture, science, information and communications technology, engineering, maritime security, blue economy, and humanitarian assistance. The world's biggest trade deal is likely to move forward without India for the time being, diplomats and officials said on November 4 as negotiators pushed to finalize the sprawling ASEAN Pact backed by China. The Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, includes 30% of global GDP and half of the world's people. Objections by India dashed hopes of signing the deal at this weekend's Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit in Bangkok after 7 years of grueling negotiations. India has raised concerns about market access, fearing its domestic industries could be hit hard if the country is flooded by cheap, made-in-China goods. The other members have agreed on the text of the draft agreement, aiming for a deal to be signed next year. China's Deputy Foreign Minister Le Yucheng told reporters, quote, "It is the 15 participating countries that have decided to move forward first." He said, "Whenever India is ready, it is welcome to get on board." The RCEP includes the 10-nation ASEAN bloc, along with China, India, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. The deal has gained traction amid a bruising US-China trade war that experts fear could drag global growth. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who is under domestic pressure to pull out of RCEP, told the Bangkok Post over the weekend that it would create unsustainable trade deficits. Indian unions have staged protests calling for more of a say in the final deal. Echoing the deal's open-door policy, Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said Monday the text of RCEP is done. Even without India in the mix, RCEP will be the world's largest trade pact. A diplomatic source in Bangkok told AFP that India's inclusion in the deal is important to offset Beijing, the world's second biggest economy. The diplomat told AFP, RCEP has better strategic value if it includes India. Without India, there is no balance. On the economic side of the summit, Prime Minister Shinzo Abe of Japan praised the signing of the revised ASEAN-Japan Partnership Deal at the 35th ASEAN Summit in Bangkok recently. He also vowed to double Japanese investment and loans to the Association of Southeast Asian Nations to spur development in the region. Let's listen in.
On institutionally strengthening connectivity, I welcome the signing of the revised protocol of the ASEAN-Japan Economic Partnership Agreement. I hope for its early entry into force so that service trade and investment are further vitalized. I welcome the progress in the RCEP negotiation. RCEP is important from the strategic and economic point of view as it will realize the world's largest free and fair economic area, thus bringing free and open Indo-Pacific into fruition. I'd like to see the continuation of cooperation toward the early conclusion by the 16 countries. In response to the rapid progress in the digital innovation, we will be discussing with other countries at the Fourth Industrial Revolution Dialogue measures to develop an environment for ICT-based disaster risk reduction cooperation and for the greater penetration of digital business conducive to resolving social challenges. In order to support financially this joint statement, we shall launch initiative of overseas loan and investment for ASEAN. Mainly in ASEAN region for areas such as quality infrastructure, financial access, support for women, and greenfield investment, we are prepared to double the loan and investment by JICA going forward with the aim of mobilizing funds, including from the private sector.
U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross said, after some very good conversations with automakers in the European Union, Japan and elsewhere, the U.S. may not need to impose new tariffs on imported automobiles.
We're also engaged in a long overdue reassessment of our trade relationship with China, and we are very far along with phase one. The Trump administration is extremely engaged in and fully committed to this region. The U.S., in fact, is the largest source of FDI into the Indo-Pacific region, with a total investment at the end of last year of some $866 billion. That is far more, for example, than China's foreign direct investment in the region.
Meanwhile, Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad railed at US President Donald Trump's trade wars at the regional summit in Bangkok. The Prime Minister said the regional bloc of 10 countries with its combined population of 650 million people, about half of China's total population, was a formidable and significant market. He said that ASEAN does not want to be dragged into a trade war, but will not be bullied and could prevail if its member states rallied together and spoke as one voice against some of the old developed nations where protectionist sentiments are gaining momentum against the new economic producers, which includes Malaysia. Dr. Mahathir cited as example the calls to boycott Malaysian and Indonesian palm oil products. Let's listen in.
ASEAN is quite a big market for the whole world. We don't want to go into a trade war, but sometimes when they do things that are not nice to us, we have to be unnice to them. Well, if you cut down on imports of palm oil from Malaysia, we will cut down on some of our imports from you. Equal amount. You do exactly what Mr. Trump does. Not a very nice man, but he does those things, and we can learn even from people who are not so nice. The world, some of the old developed countries are not too happy that they cannot compete like before where they hold the advantage, but now the competition in terms of product, in terms of access to market, has been leveled out. That even other countries, smaller countries, can make use of new technology to compete where there are talks about limiting trade, about trade wars and applying higher taxes for imports and all that. But I think this will not last very long, because they will understand that if they cut themselves off from the new producers, they stand to lose a lot.
Meanwhile, 3 major sector deals were signed between ASEAN member states and China, expected to benefit journalists and media professionals in their respective states, a palace official bared on Monday. Presidential Communications Operations Office Secretary Martin Andanar said the deals between governments of ASEAN and India include communication on media policies and issues, cooperation on news coverage and materials, and information dissemination that strengthens synergy between China and the countries involved, and media content cooperation through co-production of films, TV series, documentaries, and new media content. Andanar welcomed the signing of the media sector deals, which he expects would help enhance the skills and capabilities of Filipino journalists and media professionals. He also said the media sector deals will help foster growth for its nation's respective media industry through discussions, learnings, and collaborations. The deals also aim to encourage participation in the film and TV festivals of China and the said countries, intensify cooperation in research and development in media technology and equipment production, and encourage education and training through exchanges and workshops for media professionals from China and ASEAN countries, he added. He described the signing of the deals as important, especially at a time when disinformation and proliferation of fake news can harm relations between countries. Andanar said, as media is responsible towards connecting and bridging people towards understanding and appreciation, undertaking these exchanges and cooperation are necessary initiatives towards building mutual trust and understanding and maximizing the potentials of mutual growth among journalists. Before we go on break, here is Thai Prime Minister Prayuth Chan-o-cha summing up the achievements in the past year. The Thai Prime Minister said ASEAN had worked for its people to enjoy greater sustainable security, to facilitate trade and to promote sustainability in the region through consolidating cooperation within ASEAN and between ASEAN and external partners for the benefit of the people, among others. Take a listen.
ผู้นำอาเซียนได้รับรองเอกสารมุมมองของอาเซียนต่ออินโดแปซิฟิก
ASEAN's vista on the shifting geopolitics of our times and seeks to decrease competition and confrontation between major powers in the region. ASEAN has also established a mechanism to resolve the humanitarian situation in Rakhine State, and it is our hope that ASEAN will continue to play a role on this issue in order to help with preparations for the repatriation of the displaced persons. Second, we have worked to ensure that ASEAN cooperation over the past year will help to facilitate trade and cushion the impacts of trade conflicts and economic disputes between our major trading partners. We have concluded the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or RCEP, according to the Joint Leaders' Statement on the RCEP, which is a coming together of countries that together account for 32% of global GDP, almost half of the world's population, and 30% of global trade. As a result, ASEAN will benefit from increased market access to trading partners. In addition, this year, ASEAN entrepreneurs will receive concrete benefits from the operationalization of the ASEAN single window in all 10 countries. the conclusion of the ASEAN MRA on type approval for automotive products, the initiation of the establishment of the ASEAN Network for combating IUU fishing, and a roadmap for the development of sustainable capital markets in ASEAN, among other things. In addition, we have promoted an ASEAN identity through declaring 2019 as the ASEAN Cultural Year and supporting ASEAN's joint bid to host the FIFA World Cup in 2034. All of this so that ASEAN citizens can together take pride in being a part of ASEAN. The joint bid will also help to promote the development of football, health, and sportsmanship for people of all ages in ASEAN, especially following the signing of the MOU between FIFA and ASEAN 2 days ago. And lastly, we have worked to promote sustainability in the region through consolidating cooperation within ASEAN and between ASEAN and external partners for the benefit of the people. ASEAN leaders have adopted the vision statement on partnership for sustainability to serve as a guide for continued efforts to bring about sustainability in all dimensions. We have also established the ASEAN Center for Sustainable Development Studies and Dialogue in Bangkok to support work in this area. And at present, Norway, Switzerland, the European Union, the United Nations, World Bank, Asia Foundation, and the Rockefeller Institute have expressed interest in developing concrete projects with the Center on the basis of the Complementarities Roadmap, which aims at promoting synergies between the ASEAN Community Vision 2025 and the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development.
When we come back, we'll take a look at the lighter sides of the ASEAN Summit. Stay with us.
Madilim ang iyong paligid, hating gabing walang hanggan. Anyo at kulay ng mundo sa'yo'y pinagka.
Net25 is now available on OSN, the largest entertainment network in the Middle East and North Africa.
Hello po sa inyong lahat diyan. Ako po si Leo Obligar at araw-araw tayong magkakasama sa Piskante ng Bayan.
Watch your favorite Net25 shows on OSN Channel 725, same day as the Philippines. Net25 shows live and on demand anytime, anywhere, on any mobile device on OSN Play.
Dito po sa Net25, OSN, siguradong at home ka dito.
Landmarks, Linggo, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition. We are now down to the lighter side of the ASEAN Summit. First is the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between ASEAN and FIFA. The Southeast Asian countries signed a Memorandum of Understanding with football's global governing body FIFA on Saturday, November 2. The deal aims to boost investment, capacity building, and education for the sport in the region, particularly through FIFA's Football for Schools program. Now, let's hear the respective speeches of the ASEAN Secretary General and the President of FIFA regarding the MOU.
Your Majesty, Excellency, Head of State,
government of ASEAN member state, His Excellency Sir Giovanni Infantino, President of FIFA, ladies and gentlemen. At the 34th ASEAN Summit last June, ASEAN leaders welcomed the shared wish of ASEAN to develop a joint bid to host the FIFA World Cup 2034 and expressed support for the efforts of National Football Association and the ASEAN Football Federation to realize this goal. This announcement brought much excitement within our region of 650 million people, proving just how much football is loved in this region. Football, sport in general, is indeed a strategic means of bringing people together, promoting greater people-to-people connectivity, and binding us stronger as one community. It is my distinct pleasure to announce the ASEAN partnership with Federal International Football Association of FIFA as mandated by all 10 ASEAN member states through the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding. This MOU between ASEAN and FIFA aim to foster synergies and collaboration in leveraging football as a catalyst for social development, healthy lifestyle, as well as instilling value of sportsmanship in ASEAN community building process. The MOU put forward 4 areas of collaboration, which are promotion of sport integrity, sport for development, FIFA Football Schools program, and lastly, professional capacity building. Through this MOU, we look forward to a stronger football and sporting community in the region that builds on our unique regional identity and sense of community. Thank you very much.
Majesty, leaders of these beautiful countries in the ASEAN region, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is for me today a true honor, but also a great pleasure to be here with you for the ceremony to sign a Memorandum of Understanding, a cooperation between ASEAN and FIFA. Today I'm, of course, a very happy man, and I know that you are happy too, because actually after some decades of discussions between all the ASEAN countries, finally we found the one topic that unites everyone. It's this, it's football. But obviously as well, we all know that we have the same mission. Yours, of course, much more important than ours. But our common mission is to give hope and to give smile to our youth, to give joy. And I can assure you, if you take a ball and you give it to a child, to a boy or to a girl, the boy and the girl start smiling immediately. This is magic. This is the magic of football, and we need to foster and develop this. And I'm proud that out of the 600 million people living in this region, I'm sure that 700 million are football fans. And that's why it is our duty and our task to come here, to work together and to invest. To invest in football, to invest in our youth, to invest in your boys and girls, because this is the future. Football, we know it, is a school for life. Your General Secretary said it. It educates, it transmits values, respect, fair play, team spirit, learning to win, learning to lose, all values that help us to work together. So I'm happy that we signed this. I'm happy to tell you that FIFA is here with you. We are here to work together to develop football together, because our people, your people, deserve it. People in your country, businesses in your country invest 10 times more in European football than in football in ASEAN. We need, of course, to invest in ASEAN. We have to bring foreign investment to create job opportunities, to create opportunities for life. And that's why I'm happy as well that you are planning, you are discussing to bid for the World Cup in 2034. this is certainly something that is worth pursuing for such a big part of the world. We have to work to invest in football, in club competitions, in a true ASEAN Champions League. We work together with your national football associations and with all of you to make sure that we bring investment, that we bring hope, that we bring joy to 650 or 700 million ASEAN people. It's a true honor, it's a true pleasure for me to be here. Thank you for your trust, and I'm very excited about the journey that we are going to start today and work together. Thank you very much.
After the signing of the MOU between ASEAN and FIFA, a FIFA representative went from right to left, distributing jerseys to the 10 ASEAN leaders who stood in the middle of the stage. Two of the ASEAN leaders, namely President Rodrigo Duterte and Brunei's Sultan Hassan al-Bolkiah, received jerseys with number 10. According to a report from Bangkok-based The Nation, the number 10 means team captain. The other leaders, Malaysia's Mahathir Mohamad, Myanmar's Aung San Suu Kyi, Singapore's Lee Hsien Loong, Thailand's Prayut Chan-o-cha, Vietnam's Nguyen Huan Phuc, Cambodia's Hun Sen, and Laos' Thongloun Sisoulith all received jerseys with number 9. Meanwhile, Indonesia's Jokowi got a special number 21 as his country will host the 2021 Under-20 World Cup. Finally, on today's episode, during the closing ceremony of the 30th ASEAN Summit and related summits, Thailand's Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha formally handed over the symbolic chairman's gavel to Vietnam's Prime Minister Nguyen Xuan Phuc. Vietnam will officially become the ASEAN chair on January 1, 2020, the third time it has held the responsibility after 1998 and 2010. Take a look.
Your Majesty and honored guests, I have every confidence that Vietnam will take on the ASEAN chairmanship from Thailand with pride and will carry on ASEAN's dream of advancing partnerships for sustainable peace, freedom, security, and prosperity in the region for present and future generations. So allow me to leave you with the following idea. To ensure sustainability in ASEAN, there must be 3 C's. That is, continuity, complementarity, and creativity. I therefore wish Vietnam and ASEAN every success for the next year. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to witness this historic moment, inviting you to count it down. We are counting it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And the ASEAN chairmanship has officially been handed over to the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Thank you very much indeed to your...
Build on those achievements in 2020, we'll focus efforts on consolidating cohesion of ASEAN. This shall be done through intensifying the solidarity, unity, strengthening economic integration and connectivity, deepening the values and particularities of the ASEAN community, improving the ASEAN institutional capacity, and strengthening ASEAN engagement with the global community. Let us think community and act community. I welcome you all, ladies and gentlemen, to Vietnam for ASEAN 2020. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, Prime Minister of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, inviting you to kindly take your seat now, Your Excellency. The Socialist Republic of Vietnam will officially assume the ASEAN chairmanship from the 1st of January to the 31st of December 2020. Your Excellency.
And that's it for today's episode of ASEAN in Focus Weekend Edition. I'm Kaloy Tabunda, and I'm one with 25.
paborito kong parte ng araw. Pagkagaling sa school, binibilisan kong magbihis ng pambahay para maabutan ko agad si nanay sa kusina. Gustong gusto ko kasi siyang pinapanood habang naghahanda ng hapunan. Pinipiling mabuti ni nanay ang mga sangkap. Maingat niyang inihahanda ang mga ito. Hugas dito, tadtad doon, tinitiyak niyang kumpleto at handa na ang mga sangkap bago niya simulan